Welcome, everybody, to one of our Ask the Expert series. Excited to introduce you to today's expert. If anyone has purchased the EARN course or Earn Attorney Referrals now, you may have already talked to Dan and explored the EstateExec software. Dan is the founder and CEO of a software company called EstateExec. And today we're going to kind of look at his story of why he has created the top rated consumer and professional facing estate management software. Dan and I were connected through one of our students, David Pinnell, first introduced us. He's like, "Hey man, have you ever seen this? Like we got to get a hold of this." And instantly when I looked at it, you guys have heard me talk about how important it is that you connect with attorneys, really build your local probate knowledge so you understand the process, so you can provide the highest level of service to the families and prepare them to meet with their attorneys, to be a good client and not be the reason for that administrative drag. Dan has created a tool facing both consumers and professionals to help solve the same problem. How do we make this easier for the family, less intimidating, less daunting, easier to collaborate with the team that we're going to bring to the table? There's a million different things you can do in software. They chose one that was purposeful, in my opinion. And it's just a perfect addition to our most recent course, Earn. It's a way for us to actually provide consumer value, and it's symbiotic. So we can offer something to the consumer that we pay for instead of them having to pay for it. And that adds value to our business and raises the quality of our referrals for our referral partners, especially our attorneys. So we're going to jump into Dan's story, kind of talk about why that need was in the marketplace and how he filled it and what they do as a company. So Dan, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chad. I really appreciate it. And as I was telling you earlier, I think this program is super high quality, your EARN program, that is. So we're happy to be a part of it.
Let's go back to the genesis. I'm assuming you realized there was a problem, right? Something's missing. And like, let's talk about the genesis of the idea and the progression to get you to here, and then what you've learned along the way, like that consumer focus. Why that when there's a million ways you could have built a software company? Why in this niche?
Well, I've been building software companies for quite some time. I've been in Silicon Valley for over 30 years and done things where I built companies from a small garage to working for giant companies like Google. So I felt pretty competent in that whole space. And when unfortunately my parents passed away separately, it's a sad event. It does happen to all of us inevitably, though. And I was named the executor in each of their wills. And I thought that with my background, serving as an executor would be a walk in the park. I'm not trying to brag, but I do have an undergraduate and a graduate degree from Harvard University. I've been the CEO of multiple software companies. I've run billion-dollar organizations. And so I thought, okay, fine, I can serve as the executor. Huh. It was a lot more difficult than I ever imagined. And I had a lawyer helping me. Hiring a lawyer to help you with the probate process is a little bit like hiring an accountant to help you with your taxes. You're not done. You don't just hire the person and then walk away. They turn around and they have all sorts of assignments for you and things to do. And so I was immersed in this process. And to try to help with this, I started to put together some online spreadsheets and documents to track everything using Google Docs and Google Sheets and all that kind of stuff. And then at one point, my sister was a co-executor for this. So I'm sharing these things online with Google Docs and spreadsheets. And I realized that, this is something that everybody goes through. Inevitably, everybody's parents pass away. And usually it is a child of the parent that is named to serve as the executor in the will. And they've never done it before. They have no idea what they're doing. Even if they do know, there's a lot of things that you have to organize and keep track of. With my background, looked at this and said, there's a real need here. This process hasn't changed since the days of Charles Dickens and Great Expectations. This is very old-fashioned. There's nothing to help you at all. And I know how to do this. I've built multiple companies to help with this kind of thing. And this is right up my alley. And so I decided to found a company to build the software to help people with this. And I have to say, the product over the years has become better and better and better. The first version we released in 2015 was good. But since then, we've added so many capabilities with online bank transaction downloads and expanding into Canada and accounting reports and all sorts of things like that. But I will say it's still a lot of work, and we still have so much more that we improve this program every day. In fact, we made some improvements for this program just for the Earn program itself.
If you've ever seen me on a video, you heard me jump on my soapbox and rant about empathy and about benevolently approaching this. And that's why I say we were proud to partner with EstateExec, because it's a consumer focused tool. Like, the consumer impact is a KPI that matters most, right? Even as a Harvard educated business leader, in the emotional state that you were in, even you struggled. Like, that's one of the things that I think a lot of us, if you've never been through it, you may not even consider that no matter how sophisticated or intelligent or accomplished an executor or an administrator or even a trust administrator might be, when you lose one of the closest relationships in your life, it dominates everything. Like, you have brain fog, you're not thinking clearly, you can't focus. Like, it was shocking to me. I really pay attention to my brain, and I pride myself on being organized and professional. And watching my mom grieve after losing my dad, it changed everything. My aptitude dropped by at least 50%. And I needed every bit of help I could get, right, to stay organized. I literally had blind spots in my memory, which I had never experienced before.
I think it is very important to respect the people's feelings and what they're going through at the time. Now, eventually, some of the people do get out of that stage of mind and they're more about the nuts and bolts of things. But particularly if you're contacting them early on, they are still in shock and grieving. And that actually translated into some issues for our software where people were forgetting that they even created an account. They were forgetting that they made a software. We would get people emailing us saying, "What is this scam that you're sending me this email about for this account I never created?" But they did. And they put their name on it and their contact information and all the rest of that. And so those holes in the brain that you're talking about, it's a very real thing that people go through.
But having a tool like this, like, I've watched my poor mother, my dad, for 67 years, he collected stuff, mainly logging equipment, farming equipment. And we literally have a stack of titles. I mean, there's 50 or 60 titles that have to be switched at DMV. But my poor mom, the cobbler's son has no shoes. I've encouraged my family to have proper estate planning in place and have a trust and have all that handled by someone who's not a member of the family, a trustee. That didn't happen. But watching her struggle through just literally stacks of paper and the stress of handwritten notes here, and where did I even leave off on that task? Like, the need is obvious for anyone who's ever worked with a family in probate and dealt with the human aspects of that. The need for the software is obvious. One of the things, I mean, I'm proud to be able to support your business in such a way that we can take entrepreneurs and business owners who understand that, who have already been out there helping these people, and we can actually move the cost of the software. So your consumer facing product is $199 a month now.
So let me just jump in there. So when we started, we were charging $99, not per month, but lifetime. As we've been adding capabilities over the years, tremendous new functionality, we finally did raise the price to $199. So, but that's a one-time fee. So your students still have the $84, $85 price tag. So they get quite a discount on this thing, but the value that they're providing to their prospects and their clients is, nominally $200, but really the way that I look at this thing, it's a lifeline. These people are struggling. They don't know what to do. They're drowning, and you can come and you can help them. And I know that this is about business in part, but it's also making the community better and making the world better and making people feel that it's going to be okay. And we provide a nice set of structure to help you through it so that you can kind of calm down a little bit, feel like you're on top of it, and your students are there for our clients in their time of need.
I want everyone who's following this, part of this community, I want you to be talking to families as soon as possible. But what I don't want you doing is being typical. The me, I'm a cash buyer, I can buy houses, I'm a realtor, and look what my GCI was. Nobody gives a shit about that. What I want you to do is talk to families early because you have something valuable to offer them, not because you want to harass them into a real estate deal. If you can slow down, be patient, and have a benevolent, empathetic mindset, the real estate deal is yours. You have to get trust. You don't have to get a deal. So this is a tool, the letter that I've written and included, that introduces this to them. It explains why you're reaching out so early and what you have to offer them. And you can even edit that letter to where you can say, this is a $200 software. We're willing to do that for you. I think that you don't even have to do that. The perceived value of it is high. The reality is we can deliver $200 in intrinsic value for $85 and of your marketing budget, versus hammering the phone, sending multiple letters, trying to get that first conversation started. The very first thing you talk about is how to help them control and minimize stress in their already stressful situation. Real estate will come. They will book those assets in the software. You will see what they own. You will see what it's worth. You will be able to share that with team members. So the whole idea of including this was for consumer value, like what can we do for them? In return, we want to earn their trust and we want to have the conversation about real estate when they're ready. We also want to make them the best damn referral we've ever had to an attorney, because when they go to their first consultation with their attorney, if they were pro se or pro per, they're going to be prepared. They will have the list of assets, the list of liabilities, all of the heirs, all their contact information. It's all right there, and we can literally just share that with the attorney of their choice.
Let me just jump in here for a second, because we've talked on this conversation a lot about the 199 or $85 or whatever it is. And I think that's a real aspect of it. But I think another aspect of this thing too is that you're reaching out to these people when they need help and they don't even know to whom they should turn. They have no idea what they're doing. And ultimately, even if they choose not to use the software, you still reached out to them when they needed help with something that could have been helpful, with something that was obviously aimed at helping them through this process and showed a lot of knowledge in the opportunity. Even if they choose not to have you purchase EstateExec, I still think it gives you a lot of credit and building a connection with that potential client so that you can go forward and get the deal that you're ultimately looking for. So to be clear, you can send out trial licenses for free to as many people as you want in your funnel. And it's only the ones that choose to continue using the software that take that $85. But you still, I think, get a lot of credit in the marketplace.
For sure. And the letter that I wrote is really, regardless of whether they use it or not, it's a great differentiating brand statement, right?
I thought
So
that letter
even if
was very, I thought that letter was very empathetic. It really nails it. It's so hard to do though. The fact that you did that for your students, I think is really important, because we've made some mistakes as we've gone through this process. And if you reach out in the wrong way, they think you're like an ambulance chaser or picking
Yeah.
over the cadaver of the person that's not barely dead. You really need to do it in the most careful, empathetic way. And your letter does that. I think.
And we couldn't do it without the partnership. I mean, it would take years and I'm sure hundreds of thousands at a minimum of dollars to replicate what you have. So I couldn't be happier to have the partnership that we do. I'm really happy that our students are reaching out and learning more about the platform. One of the things that have been most frustrating with me as I build virtual businesses for almost 15 years now is software companies are oftentimes very resistant to any development changes. What I really enjoy about this partnership with EstateExec is they're seeing how our users are using the platform and proactively making development changes to better serve. We didn't ask for that. Like, I spoke to Dan after taking almost a month off, and he's like, "Hey, by the way, we had to push prices as we released features, but not for your folks. And by the way, we made some dev changes that are going to make everybody's life easier." With one of those being the ability the way the software was laid out didn't exactly fit the letter that we wrote and the way we teach you to use it in the course, because you become the owner of the EstateExec account. So if you set them up on your 10-day free trial, and then for some reason they want you out for privacy reasons, or you want out because they chose not to be a client of yours, but they still want to keep the software, Now you have the ability to reassign ownership of that account. So you can actually, if the family requests that you leave the software and don't see the list of assets, for example, you can do that. You have that ability. And it speaks a lot about them as a company, their willingness to watch what the user experience is and to proactively make changes. And that's really encouraging to me as we grow together and do more for the consumers and for the attorneys and for the real estate professionals. That's really encouraging in the partnership. So thank you guys for being that kind of company. It's kind of rare.
Well, that's who we are. And it was actually one of your students that reached out to us and said, not only in the cases that you just described already, but also, listen, I want to help these people in the beginning, but sometimes serving as an executor can take 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. I don't necessarily need to be involved for that entire process period. And as you said, the family doesn't necessarily want me to be able to access their stuff forever. And so we did build that capability, and that is live actually as of yesterday. And if anybody's watching this and was wondering how to do it, normally when you create an estate, you fill in some information for it, and then you go to the estate share menu and you put your prospect's name and email address in there, and they get an email that they can click on, they get their own login, and then they can access the estate. But so can you. And hopefully you're working on it, you're coordinating it. But longer term, what you might want to do, as Chad said, is transfer ownership. And so from that same edit share dialog box, there's now a button that says transfer ownership. And you just click that, follow the instructions, and then your client, your prospect will have the estate, and you will have whatever access you asked to keep, if any, and they can override that at times.
I'm curious what you have observed as the most valuable or most used part of the software by the families. Like, what is that one thing that everybody just like, oh my gosh, how did I live without this?
It's a little difficult for me to pick any one feature that is more important than the others because serving as an executor covers so much ground, which is one of the reasons it's hard to build software that is helpful throughout the process. And early you talked about replicating the kind of capabilities that we have. You can't really see the depth of what EstateExec does just by clicking at it and using it because you're going down one little path, whether you're the state has property or doesn't have property or is in Illinois or is in Hawaii or is in the Yukon or wherever it is. There's a lot there. We've actually invested millions in the development of this software. There's different things that are of value at different stages in that process. So very early on, which is hopefully when your students are contacting them, by far the most important thing is the list of tasks to kind of get them started about protecting the unoccupied property, applying for an EIN, notifying the relatives, publishing a notice of death, all those sorts of things, just so that they can see that there's a sequence of events here that they're going to be okay. And they understand what to do. If they just go through these one after the other, they're going to be fine. The second part of that in the early stages, though, is also on the accounting and organization side. Like you talked earlier about these stacks of paperwork and titles and all the rest of that. How do you organize this thing? That, strangely, is one of the biggest breakthroughs that EstateExec had. It's not so much about the software, it's like how to think about this process. And if you look at the tabs, it all makes such perfect sense. Well, there's the assets and the debts and the transactions and the heirs and the distribution. Obvious, it's so easy. Yeah, but no one ever did it before. No one ever thought that way before. And it's a very elegant way to organize what's happening. So you can just list the assets cleanly and clearly. You don't have to think about it anymore. And so I think those two things early on, the ability to provide a structure for these people and a sequence of steps that they're going to be able to see is very helpful. But there's still a tremendous amount of work that needs to happen here. I think one of the things that was surprisingly popular to me was the executor compensation capability. Every state, every territory has its own rules for how executors are compensated. And your executor may not want to be compensated, or maybe he or she does, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's specified in the will, but every state has specific rules for doing this. Some of the rules are pretty vague, some of them are very specific, but it was always kind of an unknown area for people. And it's an area of family conflict too, because the rest of the heirs get upset that the executor is taking some money, even though it's mandated or specified by law. They think they're taking too much. They have no idea how much work the executor job is. Those guys should get paid a lot more than they actually do. It's so much work. But anyway, we built a calculator for each state, not a simple calculator, but something that actually analyzes the assets and the transactions and all the rest of that, the hours you put in. It analyzes all that and produces what the statute says that you would be entitled to. And I was really surprised. That proved to be one of the most searched for capabilities that we brings people to our site, which never occurred to me, but it is something. Now, I'm not saying that that's something that's top of mind early on the process when your clients are contacting. It's just a surprising thing. But there are interesting things in there also for how to find the assets of the estate. And that's something that we're actually working on significantly right now. So there's already some very helpful things and databases for hidden assets that you can access through our tool. But there's some new things coming out there as well. But really, ultimately, it's the providing of the sense of relief, the structure. Here's how I think about it. Here's how I record stuff. And here are the steps. That's it.
I'm really curious to learn about the consumer intent when they find you independent of someone from our community. How much of that is like inbound versus outbound? Are a lot of families out there searching for help managing an estate or how to manage an estate efficiently, estate management software tool? Like how much of that is organic, like the demand is there looking for a solution, and how much of it is you guys having to do what estate attorneys do and what we do as real estate professionals with a specialized skill set? One of the most challenging things in really establishing yourself as a probate real estate expert, nobody's searching for it. One of the most challenging things for an estate planning attorney is nobody wants to talk about their own demise. So I'm really curious what we might be able to learn from the consumer behavior coming into your business. Is most of it proactive where they're an inbound lead searching for a solution, or do you guys have to get out there and say, hey, there's something you don't know about and you need to?
I think that's very astute. And in the beginning, we thought that, well, all we have to do is build it and they will come, especially because in your business, there's a lot of competition. Honestly, there's so many real estate agents vying for the business. You really need to differentiate yourself. It's tough. And someone always knows somebody else. So if you can come with the best story, you have a better chance. But in our case, we were looking at this and there were no other tools at all at the time. So we just thought, we'll just build it and everybody's going to Google us and we'll be done. But it turns out nobody thought to Google us, just like you're saying. Since there were no tools, nobody thought to search for the best one or anyone. Now, fortunately for us, the world has evolved since we first started building this software. And in the intervening 7 years since we were live, more and more people have realized, or just it's their natural inclination to Google things and look for solutions to their problems. Most of our business today is just people coming to us because they're looking for solutions and they can't really get it. Even many people who have lawyers already, they're very frustrated. The lawyer's not explaining anything. They just want to help them. Or I only hear their side of it. But the bottom line is that many people are desperately looking for something. That's how they find us. Now, we also have lawyers who are our customers as well. I think that's an important thing to point out because I know some of your students, part of what you teach is how to get alliances with probate attorneys so that you guys can give each other business like that and work together. And many law firms are starting to use our software as well. The problem with reaching them for us is that they already have some solution, whatever it is, whether it's paper and pencil or some ancient spreadsheet they put together or something like that. It's not nice. It doesn't produce beautiful PDF reports. It doesn't share online automatically. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles and sometimes fundamental things like the executor calculators we talked about, but they don't know they're missing it. They just go through life kind of blind to this whole thing. So what do we do here? Well, what we do is we partner with people like you, or you in particular, and hope that together we can build this synergistic relationship between your students, our software, and the larger community, which consists of lawyers and the property owners, so that we can all benefit and work together and provide a great solution that reduces friction, makes everybody happier, and we make the money we deserve from all of this because we are serving a vital need to the community.
You know, one of the most challenging things for me with the EARN course is how new it is. We saw the necessity for it in the marketplace, and I can't wait until we're having this conversation 3 years from now. And literally hundreds of thousands of estate attorneys have learned about this software through our practitioners, through our investors, our realtors, and we're actually able to measure that impact. And that's the intent, guys. Like, so when you're setting up referral partner relationships, if it's an estate attorney, if it's a clean out company, if it's a care manager, whoever it might be, a registered investment advisor, a CPA, all the people that we teach you to put on your team, you should tell them about this software so they know that there is a central point where everybody can come together and help the family. They need to have at least a basic understanding that this is one of the tools in your service and why that brings efficiency and a stress reduction to consumer, but efficiency to you guys as a professional team that's helping them. So be sure and have these conversations with your attorneys. Encourage them to sign up for a free trial and go through and feel it, or go ahead and set them up on a free trial. You've got their email address. Like, hey, I just sent you a free trial to the software that I'm using for all of my prospects. I just want to make sure you understand the UI, the user interface, and what they're seeing, so you can see why we do this. We are trying to raise the standard of the referrals we send you and to lower the administrative drag on your firm. And to your point, your point earlier, a lot of times the attorneys that you'll hear from the consumers, oh, this attorney sucks. He won't call us back. Like, I can't get him to do anything. The reality is, you used a metaphor earlier in the conversation about a CPA. A CPA can't go gather your 1099s and K1s, figure out how many miles you drove, and pull all the receipts from your meals and entertainment. There's part of it. The CPA can file your tax return. They can give sound advice, but it's still on the filer to actually compile the documents so the CPA can actually do his job. In my experience with probate, a lot of times the consumers who blame the attorney, they can't go rummage through a house and come up with vehicle titles. It's usually the executor is overwhelmed and they're blaming external factors because they don't want to say, I'm so damn hurt that I feel like I'm in sludge, like I'm not efficient, I'm not thinking sharply. The attorney becomes a scapegoat oftentimes. We can help reduce that for our attorneys with tools like EstateExec. If we can create a more stable, more productive, less stressful environment for the personal representative, then they're going to be less critical of everyone on your team, the attorney, you, the estate sale company. If we can reduce the amount of overwhelm they feel, then they're going to be a better version of themselves. So we're really focused on the consumer to really benefit them, because frankly, it makes our lives easier and we have more dollar productive time because we're not chasing things that really aren't going to help any of us. So that's the whole idea behind the partnership here. I'm really excited to see this in the hands of all of, like, when we get to thousands and thousands of students, and then those students bringing the attorneys into it, and what changes we might not even be thinking of right now. That was like, how did we get this far and the software never had that in it?
One aspect of this that you may not even be aware of as well, which is that we've spent this whole conversation and the course talking about how people can use the EstateExec software to help the community and their prospects and to get more business. But actually, there's a reciprocal side to that, which you may not even be aware of, which is that EstateExec on its own can bring your clients new business. And the way that that works is that in our list of tasks, we suggest things like you may want to hire a lawyer, or you have to get your artwork appraised, or you might want to hold an estate sale. And oftentimes we will list organizations with whom we have a relationship that they might want to take advantage of for estate sales or appraisals or things like that. But we also have a task that says, you may just want to get some generalized executor help. And so your students are more than just real estate agents. They actually can bring additional help and resources to bear on this process, which is what you're trying to train them to do. We can include them in that task. And so what it does is they tell us which counties they serve. And then if somebody's come to EstateExec through other means, nothing to do with you guys, and if they are dealing with an estate that has property in that county, we can list your student as a vital service that they might want to take advantage of. So then they can click on the link. Now, this really works well, and some of your students have done this already. It really works well if they have a website that pushes them as a probate aide or expert or assistant. So it can't just be like, I sell real estate, use me. But if it talks about probate on there and some expertise and people you can bring to bear and all the rest of that, then we can list you. And I don't think this is going to inundate you with so much business you can't handle it. But if it gets you an extra listing or two, hey, that's great.
So guys, Dan is letting cats out of the bag. I was tiptoeing around this because I didn't know if we were ready to go. My big vision for this is to actually get your entire team, your entire vendor team built into your version, your local version of EstateExec. So when they hit week 2, that one of the tasks is follow up with Chad and let him know if the software is serving your needs. The next week, it's time to actually get the EIN. Here's our preferred CPA if you need help understanding what that means and whatever that might be. We find ways to customize the task list where we introduce them to our team. No differently than we do now. Like what I've taught for years is build a team around you, understand what the family's needs are, and then one at a time introduce the team members that are necessary. So ultimately, what I can't wait to get to is a version of EstateExec that matches what you've learned as a CPE. So I have this team of people that I built. This team of people is now in a checklist, and it can be triggered based on time or based on other tasks being completed. But also, Dan, something you and I haven't talked about, another cat's in the bag. We're building a national directory for estate professionals, and just had a call with our attorney panel yesterday. Every certified probate expert in the country, all 3,000 or so. The idea is to try to get CPEs to load their teams into this directory. So ultimately, what we can do is tie the estateprofessionals.org. We can tie that to EstateExec, and it can actually feed. So the people who have actually done the work and they're part of this community, who prescribe to a certain standard of ethics, a certain way of behaving, to that benevolent approach of actually focusing on consumer value first instead of a paycheck. But we all like paychecks, but also being focused on doing less work yourself, delegating it to your team, spreading that around with the ultimate focus of consumer impact. That's why this directory is being built, and we can have a directory full of a curated group of people who deserve to get these automatic referrals. Imagine the power if we have thousands of people using EstateExec with those people connected to it. Imagine the power of that network. Like if we can get all of the right people pulling in the same direction to make this easier for consumers, imagine what that looks like in 10 years. So that's where I'm excited to head on things like that. Take the thousands of benevolent entrepreneurs we have that are out there busting their ass doing this on the streets manually, and we can start to automate some of that. We can bring a higher level of customer service because of the efficiency software brings to us. So those are 2 cats out of the bag, but both I'm really excited about, and I can't wait until we get there. Like I said, the hardest part about Earn so far is like, it's so new. We have so much to do, but it's been really cool to see the feedback and how people are using it, and especially, and having for having a piece of valuable software like this without me having to invest millions of dollars. So I'm very grateful for the partnership, and I really, really look forward to where we'll grow together. Guys, this is probably one of many future calls. Like as we continue to go down this road, we're going to learn more as we get more and more people through the Earn course. We get feedback from more attorneys. We come up with different features. So I hope that Dan is will become a familiar face. He's been very generous with his time and very generous with the offer. If you've bought the Earn course and you're one of the people who haven't actually taken what you invested in, I encourage you to jump in, actually get your trial set up, learn what this software is about, read that letter that we include that we've referenced a few times in this call. So you understand, like, this will click together. Once you read that letter, you'll be like, oh my gosh, they have to call me. So the idea is a low pressure, early touch, a direct mail touch. It could also be email if you use the crutch of email, but I would rather see you do direct mail because you have your open rates are higher. But an early, low pressure, early touch to prompt them to call you to get them set up on the software for free. They don't even need to know it's a 10-day trial. You can present it that way if you would like, if you want to pass the cost through to them. But I will happily pay $85 for the software for a qualified lead who trusts me. and I get the social credit for providing a big, robust software tool that they didn't have to pay for. So that's the idea. If you haven't jumped in there, if you haven't seen this, if you own the Earn course, shame on you if you didn't even realize you had this. We wanted to just share a conversation with you guys where you can see why it's a valuable tool, why it's included in this course, and how you can use it to help bring value to you, to the customer or client, and to the attorneys and other team members you're working with. So if you are an Earn student and you haven't gotten to that part of the course, I challenge you to go do that now and go get set up on your trial version so you understand the value we've been discussing here today. Dan, that's all I have. Is anything you want to add in closing?
No, I think we've let enough cats out of the bag for today. Next time.
All right. Well, guys, as always, thanks so much for watching. You can always find us in Estate Professionals Mastermind, the place where thousands of benevolent entrepreneurs come help contribute to these conversations with the ultimate goal of making a difference in the communities we serve. So if you're ready to work less, earn more, and do good, come see us at Estate Professionals Mastermind. Thanks so much, Dan.